You have exactly 3 seconds to like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I'll appear in your dreams tonight. To ask for a donation for that cup of coffee, link below.
Military analysts believe that one of the main obstacles preventing the US from launching a bold attack on North Korea is their inability to violate the agreement. North Korea and South Korea are theoretically still in a state of war. The agreement signed on July 27, 1950, at Panmunjom was in fact only a ceasefire and not an end to the war. The armistice agreement, signed between General Nam Il, representing the North Korean Army, and the Chinese Volunteer Army, and General William K.I., representing the United Nations forces, ended nearly 3 years of bloody fighting in the Korean Wars 1950-1953. This agreement created the Inter-Korean Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, to separate North and South Korea, and allowed for the commencement of prisoner exchanges. If the US were to unilaterally attack North Korea at this time, it would mean Washington had violated a UN pact. It remains to be seen how this organization will react to a key member violating the treaty. But it is certain that world public opinion will strongly condemn this action. Because, ultimately, North Korea's main conflict is with its neighbor. If the US intervenes, it will be like meddling in other people's affairs, even though Washington is now labeled as Seoul's protector. Because the war was not truly over when the Soviet Union collapsed. North Korea suddenly found itself isolated in its confrontation with the United States and its allies. Pat does not want to fall into a situation of East-West unification like Germany. And they are doing everything they can to warn all parties that everyone will pay a heavy price if they consider taking military action. Therefore, North Korea is always in a state of readiness for war, nuclear and missile tests, along with other developments considered provocative. Countries wary of North Korea to take responsibility for managing the crisis and preventing the situation from escalating. Analysts believe that North Korea's weapons program was a major bargaining chip for the United States. But after years, and even deliberately raising the risk of war, Pyongyang has made other countries realize that nuclear weapons and missiles are not only symbolically useful but also essential to its national strategy. North Korea's plan is clear: they will block any American incursions by launching missile strikes on ports and airfields that would allow US troops to enter the Korean peninsula. Then, they threaten to fire missiles at major American cities to force Washington to back down. That's not even considering the already strained relationship between the US and North Korea over a long period. Openly seeks nuclear weapons to deter the United States, frequently citing the fates of leaders Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi to justify developing these deadly weapons. If Hussein and Gaddafi had possessed nuclear weapons, the US would not have dared to attack them in the past. And if you don't know how strongly the United States intervened in the fate of these two famous leaders, please watch the video that Military Technical Academy has linked in the comments below. Let's go back to North Korean logic. That is almost entirely true, as Pyongyang has remained peaceful and unharmed to this day. And with these statements alone, they have been able to simultaneously threaten multiple rivals in peacetime. However, as you know, all of the above is not a joke because, despite having absolute power, North Korea has been able to achieve self-sufficiency in military technology, especially nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, despite the extensive sanctions imposed by the West. One of the clearest examples is that in July 2017, Pyongyang announced the first successful test of an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of traveling 13,000 km. This means that such a missile could reach as far as Washington, D.C. and anywhere on the American mainland. But that was just the beginning of a nightmare. One of the most alarming statements from the Council on Foreign Relations is that North Korea may possess over 80 nuclear weapons and has successfully tested missiles carrying nuclear warheads capable of striking the United States, in addition to long-range weapons. Pyongyang also possesses medium and short-range ballistic missiles, although not posing a threat to the United States. Japan, Washington's most important ally in the Pacific, which houses numerous bases with tens of thousands of American personnel, has been placed on high alert. It is not surprising that North Korea has previously fired missiles that flew over Japan before landing in the Pacific Ocean. That was a truly terrifying scare tactic. Chairman Kim Jong-un asserted that these tests helped complete North Korea's strategic weapons capabilities, including intercontinental ballistic missiles, thermonuclear bombs, and atomic bomb. Just think about it. This is definitely hot news that the world's biggest corporations would never want to hear, sitting on pins and needles. The West must have realized one thing, no matter how much they forbid it. North Korean leaders have long since chosen not to sit down at the negotiating table with them. On the other hand, while Iran might be willing to compromise its nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of economic sanctions, Pyongyang has demonstrated a far greater capacity for resilience than Iran, despite experiencing numerous natural disasters and famines. Even the weapons programs of some countries, such as Iraq, depend on imported technology or assistance from outside.
Meanwhile,
North Korea's weapons are entirely developed by themselves. What does this mean? Even if production or storage facilities are destroyed or closed, Pyongyang's knowledge will still be maintained and disseminated without any difficulty. Cyberattacks and information theft only serve to slow down its progress. According to military experts' research on official news websites, the UN sanctions imposed so far have mainly focused on money transfers as well as the import and export of minerals and rare earth elements to North Korea. Despite constant adjustments after each missile and nuclear test, Pyongyang has proven that sanctions are like a mosquito biting stainless steel. In addition to being self-sufficient, this nuclear-powered nation continues to secure lucrative contracts. North Korea sold air defense system worth $60 million to Mozambique and guided missiles and air-launched missiles to Sudan. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I think there are still secret deals that even the most discerning ears can. Several sources suggest that the country is also involved in a network that helps them access black markets and oil companies to move money, people, and goods across borders. For a long time, North Korea has been considered a poor country, but in reality, they are building an independent economy that is bringing them prosperity. According to analysts, this independent economy plays a crucial role in creating affluent conditions. This creates favorable conditions for North Korea to transfer money into research and development projects within its nuclear and missile development program, making it very difficult for outsiders to detect. From these facts, North Korea can confidently boast that sanctions certainly cannot prevent it from becoming a country with an independent economy. Pyongyang proven it can stand on its own 2 feet and prosper without relying on the West. That is one of the biggest obstacles preventing the US from attacking North Korea, as former US President Donald Trump once emphatically declared. But just imagine what the outcome would be if the United States were to intervene militarily in North Korea. I think it's very possible that half the world will revert to the Stone Age. And that's precisely why Washington is hesitant to take action against this country. The devastating consequences of such a scenario are a topic of much discussion. Most people believe that hundreds of thousands, even, of people will die, but casualties could be double, or even triple, if Washington or Pyongyang deployed their nuclear arsenals in a conflict. But North Korea's first target is South Korea. The Pentagon will have to deploy a large force of soldiers, heavy equipment, and logistical and supply units to the country. Such elaborate preparations could not escape the notice of North Korean intelligence units. Unlike the Iraqi President Saddam Hussein before him, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will certainly not stand idly by while the US and its allies gather such a large force with heavy weaponry right on the nation's doorstep. Pyongyang will undoubtedly launch a powerful preemptive strike, knowing this is their only chance. At that time, the bustling capital city of Seoul, along with South Korea's 52 million inhabitants, would be engulfed by a nuclear storm. And the United States shouldn't expect to get away with it. A member of the Foreign Policy Organization, Defense Priorities US, predicted that if North Korea attacked Los Angeles with a kiloton nuclear weapon, Los Angeles would be wiped out, never to be seen again. Dodger Stadium will be reduced to rubble. The University of Southern California campus also disappeared. The nuclear radiation from a 250 kiloton explosion would engulf a Korean neighborhood, and residents would suffer third-degree burns if they were lucky enough to survive the initial horrific moments. In Chinatown is even worse. Tourists visiting the Los Angeles County Museum of Natural History will be transported to hospitals amidst a chaotic atmosphere of fear, overcrowding, and an abundance of patients groaning in pain. If they happened to be in the northeast area of the museum when the attack occurred, they would have been buried under piles of steel and concrete. Estimates suggest that the ultimate casualties from a single nuclear weapon detonation would be 378, and 200 injured, a total of 2 million victims. For comparison, this number is 2.5 the number of casualties suffered by the US military in World War II, and those who survived are very likely to suffer the aftermath of these attacks. That horrific scene would plunge the United States into a new dark chapter in its history, far surpassing any disaster Americans had ever experienced before. If the above scenario is still not enough to deter the United States from engaging in a nuke, then the Joe Biden administration, when attacking North Korea, must certainly be wary of China, Pyongyang's closest ally. China and North Korea still have a binding mutual military assistance agreement. Under this agreement, both countries are obligated to provide immediate military support if either is attacked. The issue here is simply whether North Korea's nuclear weapons program violates the nature of this agreement, and whether it will be considered a breach. China is currently the world's third largest military power, according to the Global Firepower 22. The army is the backbone of the Chinese military and is also the world's largest ground force. The Chinese army is basically organized into each the size of an army group, with some units having troop numbers equivalent to those ranging. According to Global Firepower, the Chinese military currently has approximately 200 tanks of various types, 1,000 armored vehicles, infantry fighting vehicles, and two rocket or missile launchers of various types in its inventory. Furthermore, a Pentagon report stated that the size of the Chinese Navy is the largest in the world and in some ways surpasses that of the United States. Beijing possesses over 350 warships of various types, mostly multi-purpose vessels equipped with advanced shipborne air defense, and anti-submarine warfare systems. They also possess a fleet with 2 aircraft carriers, 1 amphibious assault ship, 8 large landing ships, 46 central ships, more than 100 missile boats, and 79 attack submarines. Beijing's Air Force, the third largest in the world, 1,000 military aircraft of various types and an estimated 395 personnel. Regarding the development of the country's Air Force, the US believes that Beijing is rapidly catching up with Western air forces in all aspects. The Chinese Air Force is fully capable of carrying out a nuclear attack with its H-6N long-range bombers, which are capable of in-flight refueling. This marks the return of the Air Force branch to Beijing's nuclear triad. Just imagine what would happen if all these resources were channeled to North Korea by China, a world-class army combined with a country whose specialty is nuclear weapons. I honestly don't dare to imagine that scenario. The SCMP reported that South Korea's capital, Seoul, is only 40 km from the North Korean border, making it vulnerable to a joint attack from North Korea and China. Even the American magazine Atlantic asserted that the United States would be caught off guard, unable to seal for at least the first 24 hours of a war, or possibly even 48 hours. Thus, the consequences for anyone who initiates a war with North Korea are all too clear. There are red lines that even the US wouldn't dare cross. Therefore, to this day, Pyongyang remains a ferocious hedgehog on the world political chessboard that no one has been able to tame. However, these are just 5 basic reasons that military engineers believe everyone can see. So, in your opinion, what other underlying reasons are there that prevent the US from harming even a single hair on North Korea's head? Please share your opinions below to discuss with everyone. Don't forget to jot down any interesting topics you'd like the Military Technical Academy to explore in future. And now, Viet Quang would like to say goodbye and wish you all a happy new day.